Hi, everyone, and welcome to Cultivating Business. I'm Kevin McLaughlin, partner with Centri Consulting, where I lead our cannabis practice. We have another excellent guest today. Joining us is Seth Goldberg, who is a partner with Duane Morris and leads their cannabis practice, was very instrumental in starting that practice. Seth, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Kevin. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Always love chatting cannabis. So looking forward to delving in today. So why don't we get started? I always like to get a little bit of background on our guests. So maybe give me a little bit of background about yourself, how you got into the space, and how you currently fit into the industry.
Sure. So I am a commercial litigator by trade, and I am a partner at Duane Morris in our trial practice group. And Duane Morris it's a large law firm. It's what you call an AmLaw 100 firm. It's I think right now we're somewhere around 900 attorneys around the country and also international. We've got offices really throughout the U.S. And I got interested in cannabis probably back in mid 2014 when everyone was talking about a so-called green rush. I've traditionally practiced in healthcare and pharmaceuticals. And so, at the time, cannabis was really, the discussion was really about the medical marijuana programs that were cropping up in states. And it seemed like a natural fit for me from a healthcare and pharmaceutical standpoint, to be thinking about cannabis. And when I started I learned quickly that there were no large law firms that had expanded their practices into the cannabis space in any meaningful way. I mean, there were some law firms, large law firms, that had one or two lawyers practicing in the space in a given office or a given locale on a regional basis, but none had expanded on a national basis. And so I, at that point, saw that as a real need for the cannabis industry because large law firms like Duane Morris and some of the other law firms that are in the space now offer cannabis industry participants something that mid-sized and small law firms don't. We're able to give cannabis industry participants one-stop shopping, so to speak, for their legal services, and that is a real need. And it's been something that our clients have benefited from since we got in the industry. And so, I took that to our firm management. Our firm's very entrepreneurial, which is consistent with the cannabis space. Mm-hmm. And we, over the course of about a year in 2015, developed various protocols that allowed us to expand into the space on a national basis. And since then, we've been providing clients in the space and also a lot of companies that are outside of the cannabis industry that are looking at the cannabis industry and want to get in with, the full range of our services, from real estate, banking and finance, tax advice, litigation, corporate and M&A. That's really what we're able to do for our clients, is give them that full array of services. So that's sort of the background. How I fit into the industry is that since then, I've been involved in a lot of cannabis related litigation, both in court on business disputes, IP litigation, product related litigation, and a lot of resolving a lot of disputes that didn't make it to court, partnership disputes, breach of contract type claims in the supply chain, et cetera. Done a ton of regulatory work, and that usually involves advising clients about federal and state regulations relating to whatever aspect of their business is at issue, whether it's cultivation, dispensaries, ancillary companies, et cetera. And then I get involved in M&A deals all the time in terms of advising with respect to litigation risk, business strategy, um, due diligence, et cetera. So that's how my practice fits into the space. And then a large part of what I do is also advocate on industry issues, and it's a big part of my practice. As you know, I work closely with the American Trade Association for Cannabis and Hemp on a lot of non, you know, on a lot of industry issues um, that attach is advocating for. Um, Last year, I wrote a white paper calling for the major U.S. exchanges, NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange, to start trading cannabis operators. My colleagues and I have provided guidance on 280E issues for the industry recently. And just last week, my colleagues and I wrote and filed an amicus brief in the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals in a case called Biogen versus Sanders, which is about what we call hemp synthesized intoxicants, substances like Delta 8 and Delta 10 that are converted from hemp cannabinoids. So that's kind of my background and how I fit into the industry.
No, that's great, and it's pretty amazing, a firm of your size that got in, early on, in the space, and it's amazing how it's evolved. I mean, we got in about 2015, but certainly not the size of Duane Morris, so I'm sure it's paid dividends, and can't say enough about the advocacy. As as you said, I'm part of Attach, and I think it's very important within the industry as it is still new. So educating folks and advocating for people in the industry who don't necessarily have the bandwidth, expertise, et cetera, to push forward some of the things that are really important. So very helpful for folks listening, but also you've been doing some great stuff there as we push things forward in the industry. Definitely. For sure.
Yep.
Did want to get your thoughts. Obviously, the 2018 Farm Bill that's been pushed into 2024 here. Nothing's going to happen in 23. Want to just get your thoughts on how that potentially plays out, as there's been a lot of dialogue and discussion, and within the industry.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly has become a hot button issue, and as people look to on both sides, and some people have referred to it as sort of a civil war in the cannabis industry. I don't know that it needs to be referred to in that way. I don't think that's helpful to anyone to be referring to it as a civil war, or that some folks are on the side of freeing the plant and some folks are on the side of restricting the plant. I don't think any of the dialogue is productive, because the ultimate thing that we want to do is provide cannabis to consumers in a safe and effective way, and in a way that people can use it without concern. And I think right now there is some question as to whether products like Delta 8 and Delta 10 are lawful under the 2018 Farm Bill. Leaving that debate aside, because again, there are different positions. We've advocated that they're not, and certainly in the Biogen case, the plaintiffs are advocating that they are. And it is a debate that is going to obviously continue now. Mm-hmm. I think what you will have is there's going to be an appeal similar to the Biogen matter in the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals. There are likely to be additional appeals throughout 2024 until the Farm Bill does get passed and results in some change to the language. And I think until then, it's status quo in the sense that you're going to have manufacturers continue to make these products. whether that's good or bad for the overall cannabis industry is, it depends on your standpoint. My own view is that, you know, folks have worked very hard to build a regulated industry, and regulation of intoxicating products is important. It's something that needs to happen, and it's something that the states should be in control of. And it remains to be seen what's going to happen with the Farm Bill. So at least for now, this is where it is.
Yeah, no, it'll continue to evolve. I think it's important for folks to just get generally, educated on the matter, and a lot of it's going to have to do with things that we don't know about, what happens in DC and other things happening in the world. It might continue to kind of be pushed, but I think as long as folks continue to understand it, and implications are just generally important for folks, as the industry continues to
100%
evolve.
agree.
And one thing I always, when I have these discussions, Seth, every month, I always like to try to be as optimistic as possible, right? Things happening in the industry haven't been fantastic here, but one thing that I think has driven a lot of optimism is potential rescheduling of cannabis, right? We've had some news come out earlier in the year of, a path forward here on that. From your standpoint, from your perspective, obviously you have legal expertise as well. What's a realistic timeline for rescheduling in 2024?
It's a great question. I mean, some people thought it might happen this year. I know there's still the possibility that it could. At least the DEA could make some announcement this year. I know we had a bunch of governors calling for it a few weeks ago, or last week maybe. But there is a process in place once it's started, and it's not like it's an overnight announcement. There has to be a rulemaking process by the DEA. There will be a notice and comment period, and potentially there will be some litigation around it that slows things up. But I don't know how you can crystal ball it, but I would think this is definitely something that happens before the election next year. And certainly it's not out of the realm to happen in the first or second quarter of 2024. But it is certainly something to be optimistic about. And, I haven't gone back and looked at it, but I've read some articles that say, that the DEA hasn't veered from a recommendation like this in the past. So it's a lot to be optimistic about.
Yeah, that's additionally some good precedent there as well. And I think your point, I think as you get closer to the election cycle, you want to try to get it done, because I think the closer you get, things just transpire politically and things like that. So we'll see. Hopefully the first half of the year, that'd be fantastic, I think, for everybody who's following it here. Again, 2023 has been another challenging year within the industry.
Sure.
How can business owners and folks within the space show the resilience that those folks have had over the last 2 years, but really, 2023 really was a full year of it. How can they use that resilience to their benefit, I'll say, in years to come, when we do see things like, rescheduling and other things that could potentially reform the industry, and provide, to be a catalyst for the industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, as a lawyer, I've seen clients that, have really worked hard to withstand some very strong headwinds and have a lot to be proud of because they've been able to do it. I mean, they've been able to manage some very rough sailing. And perhaps a silver lining is that that has resulted in companies becoming more efficient, right? Companies that have been able to downsize or right size. Of course, nobody wants to see anybody lose a job, but at the same time, this industry had this burst from 2016 to 2019, there was so
Mhm.
much capital. There was just sort of this land grab, so to speak, and expansion. And, maybe these headwinds have resulted in companies that have more discipline, companies that are, better operated. And as a result, maybe poised to take better advantage of an upturn in the market. And, uh, hopefully that upturn happens in 2024, and we could talk a little bit about that. But, I think that for those companies that have withstood the headwinds, have made strategic decisions, and are operating in this environment, they've got a lot to gain, and likely will benefit from having endured this downturn.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we both have plenty of clients, people we know in the industry. It's been amazing to get to know and work with folks who, quite frankly, I've never worked in an industry where they've had to have that level of resilience, and truly being understand how they can continue to manage and grow a business in a in a regulatory environment like this.
Yeah.
It's unprecedented. So
Unprecedented. I mean, there's been, from my standpoint as a lawyer, you just see we've seen this industry go from just a ton of M&A and a ton of
mhm.
capital in the market, a ton of uh, equity deals, and then all of a sudden, it's nothing, and then it's a ton of debt. There's been unfortunately a number of companies that have had to reorganize. Um, the pressures of operating, in an industry where there's a federal prohibition are just overwhelming. And I think those businesses that have been able to withstand it are going to be better in the long run when there's an upturn in the market.
Yeah, no, I like the word you use, right sizing, not necessarily downsizing, but right sizing, understand where, the key focus areas are to remain lean and be,
Yeah.
or just showing that resilience, so to speak. So hopefully those folks can benefit from that in the near term here.
Yeah.
Um, I always like to end the interview with a little bit of a prediction. Not going to hold you to it. I think we've talked a little bit about some things as we look forward to 2024, but what's a prediction you have for cannabis as we look to 2024 here?
Well, I think the big prediction, which is the safe bet, is that there would be rescheduling. What that leads to is, not really a prediction, but what I'm hopeful about is that it leads to a lot more capital hitting the market. And, I think there are a few ways that can happen. One, rescheduling, it really is going to have an immediate effect on balance sheets in the industry, because right away companies can start to plan on deducting business expenses instead of, being saddled with them under 280E, because 280E goes away, or at least the problem of 280E.
Mhm.
And knowing that companies won't be saddled with 280E could result in more investment. Those folks who've been sitting on the sideline, who've been reluctant to put more money into the space, now have a reason to do so. And, hopefully this is just sort of one thing builds on another. And we get back to an industry that has more growth potential. Um, Hopefully the exchanges look at rescheduling as a reason to now
Mhm.
list operators, because that would be even yet another boon for the industry. Um, so, I think a prediction is rescheduling, and I think a hope that comes with that is a lot more capital into the industry. And I mean, it's one reason that I'm super excited about another year representing cannabis companies, and also looking forward to representing companies and individuals that say, hey, how can I get into this space? We had a ton of that before the pandemic.
Mhm.
It's really been less and less since the pandemic, but rescheduling should result both in internal and external growth and capital. So I'm really looking forward to that.
I love that thought process. I agree. I think there's almost that you'll start a little bit of a domino effect
Yeah.
with it, right? Like
Right.
that, start to see that. And yeah, I've talked and met folks who were interested. It's just not the right time for them to
Right.
jump in, whether
Right.
it's on the investment side or just business wise. And I think that this rescheduling could be a catalyst for some of those folks
Yeah.
to get some new capital in and bring some of the existing folks off the sideline. So
Yeah.
optimistic, and I think that, to your point, that almost domino effect of certain things,
Yeah.
could and may happen here in 24.
Right. Yep.
So, well, Seth, as always, great catching up. Love getting your insights from somebody who knows and has worked in the industry for a while here. So really appreciate you joining us today.
Absolutely appreciate being here. Thanks for having us, and look forward to doing it again.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have another great episode planned for next month in 2024. So stay tuned and please join us on the next episode of Cultivating Business in January of 2024.